We're ready. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Modernize's webinar, where today we'll be presenting and discussing our latest homeowner insights survey. Thank you for your patience there as we just troubleshooted how to get you all in. We have three fabulous speakers today who I'd like to begin by introducing. The first is Chris Pelletroni. Chris is the co-founder of Modernize and an industry leader and veteran. I've had the joy of working with him for the past 2 years. I'd also like to introduce Greg Hicks. He is Modernize's vice president and has over 20 years of experience in the home improvement industry. And lastly, we're really honored to have Shawn Van Dyke with us today. Shawn is an author for Profit First for Contractors and the Paperwork Punch List. He also is the founder of Built to Build Academy, which we're going to talk about more in just a few seconds. A little bit about Modernize, just a very brief introduction. So for more than 15 years, Modernize has been a leader in the home improvement space. We connect homeowners with contractors and other home service professionals to help them with their projects. We now operate in more than 15 high-value trades, including solar, replacement windows, roofing, siding, bathrooms and kitchens, and more. And we are happily owned and operated by Quinn Street, who is a pioneer in delivering online resources. I'd now like to give Shawn a little bit of an opportunity to speak about himself and what he has to offer.
Thanks, Cassie. Welcome to everybody that's joining us on the webinar. We still got quite a few people popping in here, but I'll just give you a little bit brief history of me. So I started out many years ago as an engineer. So I like to kind of make fun of engineers because I used to be one. Then found my way into the construction industry because I wanted to learn how to build stuff. Went through a real estate development. That was my first company, and then started a general contracting company. And now I work with contractors all over the United States and even some internationally in the Built to Build Academy. And what that is we just help contractors streamline their businesses, help them make more, as we say, we help you make more money, streamline your business, and get your life back. So I am an engineer at heart and a systems guy. That's my background, is in operations. And so we developed the Built to Build Academy as a online business training platform for contractors. So I get to spend my days working with and training contractors and construction business owners all over the place, and love what I do.
I love that.
Yeah, so a little bit just to give you the academy in a nutshell. There's basically 3 different levels in our academy: what we call Built to Start, Built to Grow, and Built to Lead. And Built to Start is working on foundational systems that every contractor needs: time management, sales, and the financials. The one thing that a lot of contractors and business owners throw their hands up and say, oh, I can't read my profit and loss statement. Well, we like to train construction business owners to work on the business side. So that's in Built to Start. Built to Grow is where we really dig in and give you a system by system way to grow your business profitably. And then the Built to Lead program is our one-on-one mentoring program. So that's just kind of it in a nutshell. We are, like I said before, I'm a systems nerd, and that's what we do, is we create systems for contractors.
Shawn, thank you so much for that.
Sure.
So today, just briefly, before we jump into this exciting data, we're going to talk about themes we've identified in the end of 2019 and through 2020 in Modernize's previous 4 core trades. So we're going to discuss how homeowners research and plan for their projects, their cost and budgeting preferences, as well as contractor preferences. And we also have some very recent data to share on COVID-19 that we hope you find valuable. And so briefly, very briefly, just about our survey methodology. To increase insights for our contractors, we have the ability to survey hundreds and thousands of homeowners every week. And our goal at Modernize is to learn their pain points and preferences so we can create content and for them to improve their projects, as well as educate our contractors. So the data we're going to discuss today is from November 2019 through April 2020. And during that time, we surveyed more than 12,300 homeowners, which is a significant sample. And this all occurs post-lead. So it's after they've requested a contractor that we go in and analyze these results. So we're going to first get started talking a little bit about COVID-19. So since March, we've been surveying homeowners specifically about their challenges and needs during this pandemic. And we have two major survey results we'd like to begin by sharing. The first is project timing. Nearly 60% of homeowners still plan to begin their project in the next 2 to 4 weeks, which we take as extremely positive news during this very difficult time. To give a little bit more context too, if a homeowner answered a longer time frame, 1 to 3 months was their planned agenda, we asked them a follow-up question saying, is this due to COVID? And we also saw a lot of homeowners answering no still. So we know there's a large boom right now with the DIY and home improvement sector. And this stat really emphasizes that homeowner timelines have not dramatically changed during this time.
Yeah, and Cassie, I think one thing that I've really observed when interacting with homeowners is just, it's not a surprise, right? As we've all spent more time, more quality time in the home, I think it's really kind of motivated folks to really improve that experience for themselves and their families. And so as I've kind of talked with different homeowners over the last several months, you know, it's a combination of some of these projects were kind of on the radar and bubbling and they've been accelerated. While others have been kind of really new and just kind of created by the idea or by the events that have occurred. So it's not really a surprise to me based on the conversations that I've had because we all are spending so much more time at home.
Greg, thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. Yeah, so we're seeing that as well. We have one other COVID stat to share. And again, our fabulous panelists, feel free to chime in if you want, you don't have to. But we asked homeowners if they were comfortable with a contractor stepping inside their home during this really difficult time. And we saw a 50-50 split here. So 50% of homeowners said, no, we'd rather wait to meet in person. And the other half, another 50% said they would be willing to meet with contractors.
Yeah.
Now, how can contractors be prepared to cater to all homeowners right now?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think the biggest thing is really acknowledging that it's really impacting everybody in some way. You know, obviously, you know, the way that I've thought about this is like everybody is entitled to their own reaction or perception of this pandemic because none of us has ever done it before. So when I would be approaching a homeowner, I would just really want to like address it early on in the process. Just kind of put it out there. I think that goes a long way to letting the homeowner know you're tracking it. It's on your radar too. And then I think we need to be prepared to adapt our process to meet the homeowner's needs. And I think specifically, you know, slowing down, you know, there's all these different phases to consider, but I think ultimately like just big picture themes are, you know, slow down, be thoughtful with your actions. You know, it's so easy when we get out of the truck and we walk into the homeowner's house to fall back into those old routines. You know, a handshake or, you know, kind of being more hands-on is kind of traditionally has been best practice. Whereas now I think it takes a lot of discipline and pre-planning to kind of suppress some of those instincts and to really, you know, be more thoughtful, keep your space, and doing some of those things that are not second nature. We've got to kind of reprogram ourselves a little bit.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd add to that, guys, is, and this was actually in a conversation I had with a big client of ours up in Chicago, and I took a lot of the same sentiment that Greg did. This is really just to bolt on to that. But it's also for the safety of your employees as well. You know, and talking with a lot of these companies, you know, I think in general, the way people feel about COVID and maybe some other precautions, it's going to vary by person to person. So I think, you know, letting the homeowner guide you to some extent is really important. But I think there is a certain standard that we just need to set within our companies of certain precautions we want to take. Because I have heard plenty of stories where installers don't feel comfortable going in a home, or sales reps don't feel comfortable going in a home, or even showing up to the office. And so I think, you know, especially within our company, we want to be empathetic to that and really not put pressure where it's not needed. So I would just be thoughtful of both maybe how the homeowner would feel, but just in general, how people feel towards that. And always starting with your people, I think, is a good precedent.
Absolutely.
For our contractors listening in, Modernize has created a whole library of COVID-specific resources to help you transition virtually during this challenging time if needed, especially for those homeowners who don't want to meet in person. And we will link to those at the very end.
Hey, and Cassie, one other thing that I've found in talking with our clients as well is really kind of a silver lining of all this is, those that have been delivering the quote or the estimate via Zoom have found it much easier to schedule and get all decision makers present. It's always a challenge that we have is getting all the decision makers present, scheduling traffic, et cetera. Now utilizing Zoom, that's kind of become a little bit of a silver lining that a lot of our clients are appreciating. So just, trying to find the positives in all this.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of contractors that I see, and I've been meeting, like I said before, coaching contractors for years using Zoom and this technology. And there's one thing about the construction industry that I find is that we are really slow to adopt new technology. And I don't mean that as an insult. It's a very practical because a lot of contractors, a lot of construction business owners, when that new shiny thing comes out, we say, I'm not putting it in my customer's house until it's proven because it hasn't been tested. It hasn't been around long enough. What's the warranty issues, and so that kind of mentality is good in a homeowner's, thinking about the long-term aspects of what we're building for them. So we're kind of slow to adopt new technology, but like Greg was saying, the silver lining in this COVID is that it forced technology onto everybody, and contractors are seeing, oh, wait a minute, even let's say post-COVID, whatever that may look like, it's still really easy for me to meet and have those initial conversations, those design consultations, and get some specifications figured out over Zoom. When COVID goes away and we solve this issue, then why would you ever go back? And it's never been easier for contractors to start implementing this new technology, even if homeowners aren't used to that. Then it's a great way to really start to make your sales process, especially, but even the communication during a project, that much more efficient. So I say, yeah, it's unfortunate the way that happened, but there's a lot of good things that came out of it. It's forcing that mentality of us construction business owners that are usually kind of slower to adopt new technology. The ones that get this and get it in their businesses in 6 months, a year, or 2 years, they're going to be saying, yeah, why would we ever go back to not meeting virtually and at least handling some of these things? So I think this type of technology, it's here to stay.
Shawn,
yeah, I'll add one last point to that. I could see this question being, not too far off in the future, remove the word comfortable. Like right now it's about comfort, but in a year and a half, it won't be about comfort. It will be about, well, why would I? Think of Amazon. My wife's clicking that button left and right. We get packages like, why would I go to the grocery store if I can just get that stuff here and save myself the convenience? And so anything that we do to remove friction is just naturally going to happen. Like that is a natural evolution. And so I think in the not too far off future, this won't be a comfortable situation. It will just be like, well, why would I?
Right.
Yeah. I always use the example, like you said on Amazon, two things that people used to say, no, I got to put my hands on it, I got to see it before I can buy it online, are cars and shoes. And now it's like Zappos solved that problem with the shoes. Say, hey, we'll send them to you and we'll ship them back, and it's no big deal. And you can buy a car nowadays. It's just normal now. So I think we're at the very beginning stages of that, where a year, 2 years from now, it's like, I think if you're a construction business owner and you don't offer the option, then it's going to be like, hey, not like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you giving me some kind of virtual meeting or using this kind of technology? So I think, like I said, it's here to stay.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm gonna actually transition us to our next section, but we do talk more about how homeowners are using technology, and I'd love your advice there on how contractors can meet them virtually. So our next section, we're gonna dive into is homeowner survey result for research and planning. So the majority of homeowners, we've learned, research 1 to 5 hours before submitting a lead, which isn't bad. We're glad they're doing research. But 30%, which seems like a good chunk, have spent 0 time researching. So my question first for the panelists is, why is this important for our contractors to know?
Yeah, I'll take first crack at that. I think, regardless if in my point of view, regardless if a homeowner has done, 1 to 5 hours or no hours of research, my point of view is always to just understand that they all know way less than the contractor does. We are experts in this field. We live and breathe it 24 hours a day. And so my approach has always been to understand what that homeowner's knowledge base is, meet them at their level, and then slowly over time bring them to yours. And what I've seen is the contractors that are the most proficient at this end up with the most engaged homeowner because they feel like they're being educated along the way. The challenge with this is it takes time, right? Like, we need to build time into our process to make space for that, those probing questions, to really understand where the homeowner is, and then to kind of educate them up to the level where they should be, where they can make an informed decision. So I think it's important, the 30% that are spending no time, I think, again, kind of, for me, kind of speaks to where we're at these days, right? We're just like, I'm just going to get the process started and figure it out as we go. And that makes more of an opportunity for us, again, to educate and kind of help them navigate these massive investments they're making.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And what we found too, as we spliced and diced this trade data, is it's actually highest amongst our solar prospecting homeowners, which we'll call out another couple of trends for them throughout this presentation. And we also wanted to highlight for our contractors that we actually use this question and follow up with another and say, how many hours of research would you like to do before deciding on a contractor? And we do see significant increases there. Notably, 26% of homeowners would like to spend an additional 10 hours researching. And that's taking their expertise that they're being told and researching and making an educated decision. Let's go to our next stat. Again, back to homeowners being online. So when researching their projects, homeowners are turning to some interesting sources, at least in my biased opinion. We ask what they use after Google, because Google's obviously the biggest answer. 25% of homeowners are using home improvement sites like Modernize to help plan their projects. And we really pride ourselves on providing those educational resources and making our homeowners feel confident ahead of meeting you. However, I wanted to note that 12% are turning to YouTube to help plan their project, and another 12% are turning to social media. And so I wanted to now ask our fabulous panelists what they think of this.
Yeah, for me, Cassie, this is not surprising at all. Social media and YouTube are no longer just for kids. They really turned into a legitimate source for homeowners, on the social media side, looking for recommendations from their social networks, looking for suggestions or guidance. And then on the YouTube side, DIYers, it's kind of the first stop, right? Like, can I do this myself? Or, let me invest a little bit of time and kind of watch some of these videos, and maybe I'll start to take the unit apart and see how far I get, and then hit the panic button and see if I can find someone to help, is kind of how that story ends sometimes, as we all know. But I look at this as really an opportunity for contractors to have a strategy, invest some time, be thinking about these platforms as really an extension of your company and your business profile, a way to meet the homeowner where they're spending time.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback that. And you actually said it perfectly at the tail end of that, Greg, is where homeowners are spending their time. I mean, I think that the thing we can all agree to is we don't know in a decade where that time is going to be spent. I'm still young enough to fondly remember the yellow pages. And who would have thought, right? Like, I mean, like that's where you go to get everything. I mean, I think there is a digital format of the Yellow Pages, but even that hesitation of knowing tells you just how much they've moved out of the consumer's, site. And if you're out of sight, you're out of mind in that. So, maybe it's not Facebook in the future, maybe it's not YouTube, but there will be something, right? We see Amazon getting into that game. I still think there's plays at the big box store. I mean, for those that don't know, I mean, Home Depot is still one of the largest installers of residential projects in the country. They have the largest share of overall home improvement, and they're still a drop in the bucket, And so I think the big lesson here is just, we don't know where they're going to be. And so just the ability to pivot, I think, and just kind of look out there of what's next and just kind of have a pop a shop type mentality with the next thing, and, ride the wave where you can ride it. Because there's plenty of people that do really well on these channels right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that it's that low. Again, I have a lot of the clients that I work with are all over social media, and so I think that you're just going to see these numbers go up. And like Greg was saying too, there's a stat out there that YouTube is the second largest search engine behind Google. So people go to YouTube to find out how to, like Greg said, to take things apart. And if you're that contractor that has those how-to things, just make sure you have a call to action when they get that thing pulled apart and they say, okay, I give up. They're going to go to that source where they've been getting the education and the engagement. And it's a great opportunity. And a lot of people think about, like, what's my strategy on social media? Just show how you do stuff. And people think, well, aren't we giving away the secrets? I'm like, nope, that's what's going to make people engaged. You're going to show them all of the technical expertise that goes into installing these things that DIYers think, oh, I think I can handle that. And then when you show them the professional level of service and all of the tips and tricks that go into it, they're going to be like, wow, I didn't know that. Let me just click this link right here and call them up and have them come and do this, because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to make one more point right there. You reminded me something when you were talking about that, Shawn, is, I saw it yesterday and I flagged, I was showing my wife, and it was, I think it was a Lowe's video for about a minute, and it was build a fire pit. And it was so beautifully done in so many different ways, and not from the glitz and the glamour, but just the structure. It was 1 minute and 15 seconds long in total. It started off, it was a video, so obviously there's an audio portion to it, not a lot of talking, but it had great, headlines up at the top as to what was going on. Very simple format as it was moving through the 115. The first 7 seconds of the video showed the entire project from start to finish. So you got how do I build this fire pit in 7 seconds? And then the other, 58 seconds or whatever was a little bit more of a detailed version on how to build a fire pit. I thought it was such a great execution of, here's you're taking a topic, and no, fire pits probably are not the most complicated things to build, but you took something that may have been very foreign to somebody and you made it very simple. Pretty confident anybody who watched this video would have known how to build a fire pit at the end of this. And so I thought it was just beautifully executed. And I think more of that, because what we see is some people are auditory, some people are visual, some people want to see the video, some people want to click on the images. And so having your content displayed in different formats is just going to resonate with different people. Last point I'm going to make here, and I know we're talking about online stuff, but nobody would have expected COVID to happen. And for all those companies that were heavily invested in canvassing and or events and home shows, which there's plenty of places for that. I mean, we know plenty of $50, $100 million companies I know several $500 million companies built on those channels. Being overweighted in one of those channels, puts them at a disadvantage when it comes to something like this. And not that we could have predicted this, but just having a little bit more diversity in how you generate your customers probably would have fared a little bit better in this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And I know, final point, I know we got to keep moving, Cassie, but I think, to the extent that all seems overwhelming to contractors, my advice always is just to get started and talk about and present what you know. It's kind of what Shawn was saying, right? And it might not be the perfect social media strategy, but by and large, like, original content wins, right? And so by putting out there what you do, pictures of jobs, testimonials, how-tos, just kind of stuff that you just need to get a stake in the ground and build from there. And then you can always kind of grow it and polish it over time. But I think it's important not get overwhelmed or just kind of to the point of inaction, right? I think it's best just to get going and get some original content out to your brand.
Team, thank you so much for all of that. That was super valuable. We have one more stat in just the research and planning section, and it is about stress levels, what we really want to highlight amongst homeowners. So 27% are feeling stressed ahead of their project, and this is highest for our roofing homeowners, which we really want to call out, where nearly 40% said they were feeling anxiety ahead of their project. It was also lowest for solar, coming in at 13%. And I wanted to open that up as contractors go into these meetings with homeowners and first impressions. How can they help?
Yeah, I don't think this is a surprise, right? There's stress everywhere these days, and especially when it comes to home improvements, for a lot of reasons that we've already covered. And so, my biggest piece of advice here is always, try to diffuse that. Communication goes a long way, right? And expectation, communication, starting on the first call and then all the way through the project, is the biggest thing globally. And that's kind of just my advice about stress in general. But then specifically to the roofing component, I find that kind of interesting because, it is an invasive project, but it also kind of is done, as everyone knows, like from the exterior of the home. So I kind of wonder and wish I had the opportunity to ask a follow-up question about what was driving that stress around the roof, because I would have guessed it would have been something like solar, which is way more nuanced than roofing. But again, I don't really know what was driving that.
We'll dig into that the next time we launch the survey, which will be in the coming weeks, because I would love to know that as well.
Yeah, I might be able to shed a little bit of light on that as we've worked with roofing contractors, and part of their sales process. We know, I think one of the things is just physically, people can see the inside of their home and they're very aware of different aspects. So they become very familiar with it. Very few homeowners get up on their roofs, but when you talk to a very qualified roofing company, I had one of my clients say this just a couple of weeks ago. He was like, listen, water flows downhill. That's it. Now, obviously there's some other technical things, but I think it's the mystery of what happens up there on the roof, because we don't get up and see our roof. We don't know what's going on, and it covers most people's biggest asset. So it's a very scary thing. So for contractors that are watching this webinar that are in the roofing business, that needs to be one of those first questions, or one of those things you press into, saying, hey, how, we've got some research that said this is pretty stressful for you. What else are you concerned about? Because we're experts at this and we can handle this. And we'll get into this a little bit later about how confidence sells. But I think that in my experience, it's a mystery what happens up on the roof. But when you talk to a roofing contractor, it's no big deal. Like Greg said, we're outside. We always said, hey, if you're on the outside of the home on the roof and you drop a hammer on the ground, no big deal. You go pick it up. You're inside somebody's home. You drop a hammer, it lands on a countertop, dings the floor, or whatever. You got problem. It's more stressful for the contractor to be inside the home, but putting those fears to rest at the beginning and and that would be some great content to back up to the last slide there, is to say, hey, I know this is scary. It is. In fact, we've got research that says it's kind of scary, but here's how we overcome your fears. It's not a problem. We've been doing it for 20 years. Water flows downhill. And then you get into some of the how-tos, and hey, call us and we'll, overcome your fears. That's been my experience, is just because people don't see their roof, they don't really understand it. But it's not really that complicated.
Shawn, I love that. And thank you all so much. I'm going to keep us moving if that's okay, because our next section is pretty meaty, if that works, which is cost and budgeting. Our first stat is kind of alarming results. I would use my wording. And so one of the questions we ask homeowners is very simply, have you created a budget for your project? Yes or no? And we've seen it's usually no. 79% of homeowners have not created a budget when they're going to request a contractor. So that's the first thing I want our team to discuss here.
Yeah, I'll take the first stab at this. I don't know, when I see this, and obviously I'm going to speculate a little bit here, it seems to me very obvious. I think for most people in any sort of buying situation, when we've bought a product before or we've paid for a service, we have reference points. We understand what the high and the low of a massage cost, or a pair of running shoes, or painting a room in the house. I think when we get to projects that may be once in a lifetime type projects, right? I would argue roof falls once in a lifetime, not for everybody. Some may never do it. Some may do it a couple times. But I think most of the categories in which we offer fall into that kind of once in a lifetime scenario, if you will. So if you don't have experience installing windows before, you just don't know exactly what to expect when you install windows. And so I don't think that's actually a problem. I think it can be a problem when homeowners are stepping in, not understanding the cost of a project, and that can drive a certain uncertainty, which can drive a little anxiousness, if you will, and kind of like, hey, we all want to see a number. That makes us at least kind of wrap reality or root it to some extent. And obviously from a contractor, we're always trying to judge of like, is this person serious? Do they actually have money? Where is it hiding in this house based on what I'm seeing? But I think that's natural. I think there's ways, and we've talked a little bit about it. I like to say reduce friction. I think there's ways that you can remove the mystification from the process. But I do think all of it's not leading with price. I don't think that's right. We do have to build value to some extent. But I do think the first thing we do, and we've touched on it in a couple of these other slides, is you got to get good at communication. Our best salespeople and our best companies are people that are really good at communication. They have, and so many subtleties, but they have ways of building trust with people. They have ways of asking more questions. They take more of a doctor type approach. And I think that in general helps people feel more at ease. And then I think they can kind of tell you why they're trying to do this project. And then I think from there, it's easier to navigate that. But it's very hard in my mind to provide a solution, whether it's economical or cost savings or how attractive the project is. Like, I don't know what it is they're looking for. And, as a painting contractor, which I was way back in the day, I wasn't convinced they needed their house painted. I was like, you got to convince me you need this house painted. And there's sometimes I'm like, look, you just don't need this painted. Like, I could give you a quote, but like, why are you doing this? Like, so, in some cases, I think if you lean in with let me help them navigate the best decision versus choose my product, you set yourself up for a lot more success. And so when I see the budget stuff, I just think you just got to ask some more questions.
I love that. So of our homeowners who respond to that question, if they have created a budget, we follow up with a couple more questions. And one is how they, were able to create this budget. And so of homeowners, 32% said friends and family were most helpful. 30% said they used online cost calculators and tools, and 28% simply said their budget was what they could afford. We have cost calculators at Modernize that we are very proud of. We're revamping, but our goal is to help enable homeowners to have better conversations with their contractors at that first meeting.
Yeah, I've got so many opinions on that. I think go back real quick. I think the cost calculators are great, as Modernize and Quinn Street. Like, I think that's part of our responsibility to the industry, is to both take some of that mystification out of it. I would say with our audience being mostly contractors, the lens in which I looked through was that lens. And I actually looked at that 32% and said, okay, 80% of the people are talking about, or 80% of the people don't have a budget. We're really talking about the 20% that do. And of the 20% that do, it's the 32% of the 20%. It's not a huge number, but when I look at this, I'm like, well, what can I actually influence as a contractor? And I just go back to the customer experience. All contractors in America are after one thing and only one thing only. It's more referrals. It's more repeat business. It's more upsells. Like, let's be honest, like, that's what we're all after. Like, I just want my contractors to refer their friends to me. Like, that's all Shawn wants, is somebody he's done right to turn his buddy over, because there's less convincing. There's less singing and dancing. There's less, well, let me try to be sharper with my pencil. It's, dude, if I don't provide the right value, like, that's totally cool. Go somewhere else. But I think anytime we can influence the experience of the consumer, we set ourselves up for that. Well, who did you use for this? Dude, you gotta check out Greg's company. Like, he'll do you right. That's how we all find people, So I think if anything, that's a really encouraging stat of like, how do I make that number bigger? And I just think of nurturing campaigns. I think of, thank you letters to customers. I think of like, how the hell do I provide a wow experience and really step up my game there? Because if I do that right, I get a lot of really easy business at pretty good margins.
Chris, thank you. And thank you for clarifying too that percentage breakdown, because we are talking of small percentage of homeowners who are then being polled. Their last question that we asked them was, if they created a budget, which is only that 25%, is how confident are you in that budget? And 23% are feeling very confident. 58 are only somewhat confident, and then 19% are not confident at all, which obviously we are always trying to increase that.
Yeah, I would say just, kind of high level, I would say, okay, well, there's 19% of people that are telling the truth. And everybody else is, too afraid to admit that they don't know. And this is what we always say is like, when it comes to the budget, and Chris had said this before, like, especially the contractors that we're servicing, we're talking about here, is like, you can go into the conversation knowing, even though they do have a budget, it's probably wrong because they don't know everything that you do. And now you're just into a bucket where, can they afford the thing that they want, or can't they, or can we adjust our services? Now, I'm not talking sharpening the pencil. I'm talking, developing a different scope of work. And so someone that comes in and says, yes, we have a budget. We're very confident in that budget. Great. I'm going to start the conversation there and say, well, let's break this down a little bit, because in our research or in our experience, we found that, almost 20% of people aren't really confident. And there's 23% that say they are, but then when we get done and we walk through all of the steps, they realize, oh, I didn't realize that there were the other things involved with it. So, hey, if you're feeling confident with the budget, let's just break down and see which of these other buckets you're in, and we'll be off to the races. If not, no problem. Here's our process, and we're going to walk you through that. And then kind of what we were saying on the last slide and what Chris was driving home is saying, hey, when we walk you through this experience and really hone in on what the budget needs to be, make sure you tell your friends how great we were when you came and said, here's my budget. And then we walked you through and showed you, your budget's kind of off, but we can still solve some problems. Make sure you tell your friends. One of the first things that we're going to do, like Chris said, we're not going to start with price, but we do have a process that's going to put those fears to ease. And then people start calling you up because they are going to get referrals to say, oh, you got to call Chris's company because we were wrong about our budget. We were very confident in it, but you got to call him because he's going to show you exactly what your budget needs to be. Those people call up after they've heard something like that. They're going to say, well, we think we got a budget, but we really don't know. Show us your process, and you'll be off to the races.
Shawn and team.
I just want to add one quick point in there. Like, when I think of sales and earning homeowners business, like, this is just the game of probability, right? Like, you're just trying to increase the chances that you can navigate a positive outcome for your company. We all know people do not buy logically. Like, nobody buys logically. Just think of your last 20 purchases. Some of them were logical, right? This is like, most purchases are emotional decisions. Like, that's the fact. I mean, think of the last time you made something that was really illogical, the sports car, the project you really couldn't afford. Here's the other thing too, to piggyback that. And, I know a lot of contractors out there want both decision makers. I get that. I do understand that. When I was a contractor and I was a kid, I feel like I'd kill it now. But when I was like 24 doing this, I took one simple rule, and a lot of it I've preached to you guys today, but I'd meet just the wife. We're a painting company, because I knew at the end of the day, like, if she felt like I was the best value, it really didn't matter the price we charged. We'd always charge a fair price, but she would convince her husband to do it. And he may be the numbers guy, but I mean, let's be honest, for those of us that have a significant other, either you are the wife or you have one, that's real. And so I don't know, just I think of like, how do you increase the odds that you'll get it? Just make sure you know their why. That's the emotional part. And if you end up just meeting the wife, she makes all the decisions anyways. So,
Chris,
all right, Cassie, you can do the next one on that.
No, you guys are great. I am going to just I'm just going to introduce this next stat and then move to the follow-up, because I don't think it's that worthy of all the conversation. So for our listeners, we just talked so much about cost and budgeting. We have a little bit more, but one stat just to highlight is, if a homeowner previously had to pause or cancel a project, 46%, it was because it was too expensive, which is in line to what we just discussed, right? They don't necessarily know the price. It's a once in a lifetime project. They don't know the highs and lows. And so navigating that, but helping them through the too expensive, which is a stat I'd like to focus on, is we ask all homeowners, regardless if they made a budget or not, about their interest in financing. And 75% of homeowners from this survey said they would like to finance some, if not all, of their upcoming project. And this was notably highest with our window prospecting homeowners, where 39% said they'd like to finance the entire project. This is a 26% increase over our 2019 Q2 survey. And to talk with us a little bit more about financing, I'd like to introduce James Waite from Hearth.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I was having a little bit of technical difficulties on my end, but excited to be here today. And this is a huge part of pretty much the way the industry is going right now. Lucky to partner with you guys. I've known you for several years, so this is always a really cool survey to go over. So we'll dive in super fast. I know we're limited on time, but I think one of the things to talk about more than anything is let's talk a little bit about where we're at in these weird COVID-esque times. The neat thing being in the home improvement space versus a lot of other industries, obviously, is that ours is booming. It's clear as day. You know, I know we were talking with the Modernize guys and they said their leads were way up. On our end, what we're seeing is as a whole, our industry's up 22.5%. Got to ask ourselves a question like, why is that? Looking at the middle bullets, first and foremost, it's simple. Like one of the things that you have to recognize is that if everyone's confined to office, or home, excuse me, I don't have to commute to my office. For me, I used to have to commute 40 miles one way, and I live kind of in that like DC, Northern Virginia area. I was spending $500 to $600 a month on gas. And when you look at that, if I now have that extra $500 to $600 just from that alone, not lunches, not little coffee stops, etc., I have a lot of excess cash, which means looking at those three bullets, I can pay down my credit cards, I can lower my credit utilization, and raise my FICO. On top of that, you got to ask yourself the question, great, I'm sitting at home. I'm going to look at the windows in the back of my house and be like, God, I hate those things. I have to look at them all day, every day. I have two options. Looking at the third bullet, it's simple. Mortgage rates, they're at an all-time low for 50 years. So I have two choices on my end. If I hate those windows that much, I can either take advantage of those rates, looking at the housing market, by either upgrading to a new house with a really low rate, or I need to fix them. I need to solve that pain problem by buying new windows and getting them installed because it's the perfect time. I'm not going anywhere anyway. The other thing to say too is if I do decide to upgrade and sell my house, well, I got to upgrade those anyway because I have to be competitive. It's that simple. So it's a perfect storm for this industry, and that's why we're here today. Moving on, you have to understand too that lending has fundamentally changed. You know, a lot of people know the traditional buy down financing where you're, hey, here's $499 for 12 months or 16 months, same as cash. There's a lot of these like promo offers out there. They're not free. You know, the one thing to think about when we look at traditional versus Hearth style financing is there's a time and a place for both. You just need to be educated on what you're getting into. All right. First and foremost, dealer fees. Hearth, never pay dealer fees. If 75% of the industry is asking to pay for their project in some way, shape, or form, why pay fees on that? You know, it basically means your margins are lower. You have to price your jobs higher to accommodate for those, like typically 5 to 15% fees. We put 7 because it's a nice little average, but you have to raise your costs for that homeowner in order to stay competitive with the same margins, right? Just because you charge more doesn't mean you're going to get more. And that doesn't necessarily make you competitive for the 3 to 5 other offers that they're likely going to go get. The next thing to look at too is the FICO scores. All right, with traditional financing, they tightened up their credit restrictions during COVID. We didn't have to. Hearth has 13 plus lenders on the platform, which means we can serve the entire FICO band down as low as 500. So to have a 500 FICO score, let's be real with everyone on the call, you basically just have to have a pulse and a job. Like that's where you're at. Like, but the good thing is no matter who you go to, whether they have a Porsche or whether they have nothing, a bicycle, like you have the ability to get that person approved for any portion of that 75% that want it. And then the other thing too, you have to ask yourself, if I have one application, that means if they get denied on one, I don't have to have that unbelievably awkward stop that typically yields like 85% dead in the water. Like oops, you got denied. Let's apply for this second chance lender. Here's another app. Nope. Most embarrassing thing you can do with a homeowner. So again, single loan, all FICOs, 13 plus lenders. There's really not going to be a time where you're going to hear the word no, unless it's just completely outlandish. Max loans, again, you can go through all that other stuff. We can share the deck afterwards. I know we're pressed on time. But again, this is also something I highly recommend if you either wait to get this deck distributed or take a screenshot real quick. This highlights exactly the difference between the two. When you really look at the amount of money that contractors are bleeding just through dealer fees, it's insane. No one likes to pay other people for something that you do all the hard work on. It sucks. So again, take a look at this slide when you get a chance to really dive into it, and then look at your own business to ask how much you're spending on those fees and what it means to you. And then again, I know this was a quick blurb for us. It's like that financing subject matter. We've been in the space for, a long time. We have over 9,000 contractors on our service. Love the Modernize guys and the kinds of insights they give. Such a cool company. On top of that, you guys get a chance if you want to learn more about exactly how we do what we do with no fees. signup.gethearth.com/modernize. We'll take you through anything and everything. Plus, we work with those guys to get special pricing on anything that we have. So thank you so much for inviting us. We're super excited to be part of the family.
James, thank you so much for your time and summarizing that. We're really lovely, like a partnership with you. And so we look forward to working with you guys in the future.
High five.
And this is our last section of our homeowner survey results for everyone who's tuning in, which is our contractor selection stats. And the first is, where are homeowners turning to find contractors? So 46% are using recommendations from friends and family. 13% are using search engines like Google. 13% are using sites like Modernize that specialize in contractor matching. And then 8% are responding that they're using social media. And in previous surveys, full transparency, we had an other option where people could write in, and people would actually write in their preferred social networks, like listing out Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook. So we made that an option this time and saw that captured. So my question to our fabulous panelists is, how can contractors position themselves in front of homeowners to get them?
Yeah, let me tee this one up. I think it's important, like we talked about before, is to have that social media presence and have, again, you got to be found on Google. So you got to have a website that's optimized to be found there. But, back to the largest percentage of this is friends and family in that network. And so I've put this out there before and said, that really comes down to word of mouth marketing, and word of mouth marketing is the best kind of marketing, period. Put a period at the end of that sentence, but then it continues on to say, but word of mouth marketing sucks if you don't control the words people are saying about you. Like, oh, you should call up this contractor. By the way, they're really cheap. That's not the kind of words that you want people saying about you. You want to say, hey, you should call this contractor because we were afraid of doing our roof. They made it really easy. We thought we had a budget, but they also provide us with financing options, and we didn't have to go anywhere else. We found them through this app on Modernize, and the whole process was seamless. Yeah, we paid a little bit more than we were expecting, but man, we loved the experience. You should have this experience. That's how contractors need to position themselves, is to say, like, I want to control the words that these other people are saying. And the easiest way that I've found for contractors to control those words is you just tell your customers what to say about you, or you ask them questions. Like when someone has a meeting and they say, oh, this is great. I love this. I'd like to get started, or I'd like to hire you. I'd like to take the next step. Every time they have a positive experience, you say, well, what about this so far do you like? And whatever they say, you then follow up and say, can I quote you on that? Would you send that to me in an email? Can I get you on camera? Can I take this Zoom call and have a recording of this? I want to put it, because we're doing some marketing, because we know that your friends and family need to hear these things from you, not from me, the business owner, but from you. And it's the easiest way to really leverage that referral, that word of mouth marketing, is by capturing the words that your customers are saying about you, whether it's text form, email, like whatever, or just simply saying, oh, that was so nice of you to say that. Can I quote you on that? And if people are saying nice stuff, they're never going to say no. Like, no, please don't tell other people I said really great things about you.
Shawn, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's spot on, Shawn. It's, I know this is a slide on social media, but I'm going to pivot a little bit with Shawn there. And yeah, I mean, I think that the number one thing, and really all Shawn was describing, at least the way I took it, was, you know, it's about what's the best experience you can provide to your current clients. And I tell contractors time and time again, and we're seeing it with COVID, that, you know, having more leads, opportunities, prospects, whatever the nomenclature may be, isn't always the right path. It's about how do you maximize the value in each one that you get, right? And so that's partly, you know, just once you get a lead, how quickly you follow up, how often you follow up, the messaging. And I would encourage anybody listening to the call is, you know, I challenge all CEOs, like, map that out. Like, what exactly do you expect to happen? I would start there. I would start with, how do you make the experience the best you can today? Even if, you know, you've got aspirations to make it so much better in the future, just like, what can you do today? What can you control? Start there, get the most out of the leads you got. And then if there's a delta between where you're at and where you'd like to be, I think it's appropriate to look at social media, to advertise on Google, to do whatever. But I hate seeing owners just buy leads and spend dollars in advertising, and then each lead gets such a different experience. And some just fall to the wayside because they have such a ripple effect on your business, even though they may be out of your visibility. And so I think if you just focus on one consumer and how do you make that experience the best, there's so many little subtle things, like Shawn said. Even if you're not on social media and you're trying to perfect your word of mouth game, you can still tap into social media. Hey, Shawn, my intention here is to make the experience great. I'm new. We're trying to get into social media. If I make this experience great, would you be willing to write a review and put it on your social media?
That's right.
Like, we don't know anything about it. You know
right.
what I mean? And now it goes out to Shawn's network, right? Anything you post on your social media goes to your network, right? So, you know, anything we can get Shawn to post about it. So I think sometimes just being somewhat thoughtful. You don't have to play game in all these different channels, but I would recommend, if you're going to play game in a particular channel, you play your best. You don't just skim the surface across all the channels.
I love that. Thank you guys so much. We have 2 stats. I think we're doing okay on time. We might end like just 5 minutes later, but I'm going to keep us moving. The second is, we encourage our homeowners at Modernize to compare multiple quotes to find the best price for their project and to find the best contractor for their project. And so from this survey, we saw 67% of homeowners plan to compare 3 or more quotes for this project. And I wanted to just pose this to our panelists on how contractors can use this and differentiate themselves when they're competing.
Ooh. Let me, I want to just jump in here on this one here. I am so passionate about contractors and quotes. Look, I think we all operate really similar. So anybody that's listening to this phone call, use yourself as an example. Nobody wants to meet with 4 contractors. Like, nobody. Nobody wants to meet with 4 car salespeople. Nobody wants to meet with 4 of anybody. Like, we're not only built for a slight lean towards just lazy inconvenience, but what homeowners are, the way I interpret this stuff and the way I've always interpreted homeowners getting another quote, it's really just their way of saying, I'm not 100% confident you're the best choice. It's why we date multiple people before we ever get married, right? It's, hey, I want to make sure, like, I know what I'm getting here. So I've always told contractors, don't worry about your competition. Don't worry about if a guy is lowballing out there. Don't worry about if a guy's highballing. Like, just focus on yourself. There's so much business to be had out there. You will be your worst enemy. I can assure you, it won't be your competition. And so when I think of quotes, I just think of, hey, and I told every homeowner when I was a contractor the same thing, and I would say it today, is look, dude, if you feel more comfortable with somebody else, you should go with them. Just trust your gut. Like, at the end of the day, it's just not worth it. Like, and if it's not me, all good. Just let me know that. And if it's not a phone call, send me an email, send me a text. Like, you won't get the third degree. Just, let me off the hook. Otherwise, I'm gonna follow up with you until we paint your house.
Yeah.
So, and I'm passionate about quotes here. I just think there's a lot of misinformation about them out there.
Thank you. I'm going to move to our last quote or last stack, because I think it's a great one. So we ask how homeowners are impressed after price, because after all, as Chris just said, price isn't everything. 26% of homeowners are most impressed by contractor expertise. Another 26% are most impressed by ratings and reviews, and 17% are impressed by references. So I want to, again, pose this to our panelists. Why, how can contractors wield all three?
I mean,
Yeah, I'll take a stab at the online ratings and reviews, because again, I think you'll see this stat grow in the coming years, because we all do that now. We're buying something on Amazon, and we want to see what other people have said about it. We're looking for those those benefits or those features, and so it's so important. But even this is for contractors, especially, like, you can do a perfect job. You can be priced just right and provide a wonderful experience for your clients. You're still in their house and disrupting you can be perfect, and they love you. They're still tired of you at the end of the project. They want to be back to their normal schedule or whatever. So it's great to get those reviews at the end. Hey, will you give us a review? But back to what I said before, as soon as someone hires me, I'm going to say, well, what about the process so far? And if they say something great, hey, will you go give us a review, not about the entire project, but about this piece of the process? Give us a 5-star review online or wherever you're recording that stuff, and get people to give you reviews during the process. And because that's where people are going to buy. You don't sell the end project. You got to walk them through a process. So get some reviews about the beginning of the project and the progress through the project. And then when a new customer comes and sees these different online reviews, it's not just about the end, which sometimes those are all the same. They were great. They were very clean. They did exactly what they wanted to do. Great. Everybody says that, right? But, I was so afraid, and they made my fears go away from day one at the beginning of the process. And no one knows that that you got 7 other testimonials from that customer, because they're going to see, that new customer is going to see what they want to see. And it's like shopping for a new car, right? When you start looking for a new car, you start to see it everywhere. I'm at the beginning of this process, and I'm very scared. You're going to see online reviews where people are saying, we were scared too at the beginning of the process, and they solved that problem. You're going to get that phone call. You're going to get that email. You're going to get that contact. It's going to make it that much easier.
I think stemming off of what Shawn and with what Chris said, sorry to jump in real quick. I think the other thing to make note is, feel free in the reviews too to say that you did get 3 other quotes and compare them to the other ones that you did get. Hey, I did get 3 quotes. Hey, I spoke with 5 people, but this person did this above and beyond all the rest. It's, again, knowing that they were the ones who, when compared to all others, truly shined.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm piggybacking both of you guys too. I kind of call it the mental Nutella, right? We're I think as tradespeople, and thank God there's nobody could throw anything at me. Your expertise is great. Like, don't mistake that. Like, I think there's a certain threshold of confidence a consumer has to have in buying a product, but I think a lot of it is, it needs to be good enough. Right? It needs to meet a certain threshold. Homeowners don't know all the different roofing shingles out there. And I mean, are you kidding me? Like, if you told me about something I've never done, like, it is Spanglish at best. I'm just trying to judge, like, you as a person, of whether you're screwing me over or not. And so I think and even me as, a co-founder, when I visit people, they're like, check out this window. And they're asking me to hold the window. And I'm like, I don't care about your window. Like, tell me about your experience. So expertise, I think, is important, but it's only important for what the homeowner actually cares about. The homeowner doesn't care about the type of solar panel you put on the house, or the condenser on this, or then don't focus on that. Maybe they're concerned about their cat getting out while your people are in their house. Or is it loud between 12 and 1 while their baby's taking a nap? That's the shit people really care about. Like, so when I think of like expertise and all this stuff just blends together, I always think of the mint on the pillow. How do you pay attention to a detail that the other person's not? Most contractors can do a phenomenal job of putting in a product. I would argue most roofers can do a phenomenal job of putting in a product. However, when it comes to the other side of the business, that friction, the consumer journey, I kind of like to say, what would Nordstrom do? If Nordstrom opened a construction company outside of the installation, what would that experience look like as they navigated that job with you? And if you can think of it more from that perspective, then you understand when somebody emails you how important it is to get back to them right away, especially when they've got 20,000 on a project, right? You know, you don't answer a phone for 6 hours and they think you left. Like, so anyways, I think if you pay attention to that, you'll get really great reviews, and then that will foster the word of mouth. And that's really the lifeblood of all good companies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, Cassie, sorry, I need to chime in one more thing here. I totally agree with everything that has been said. Taking us in a slightly different direction on the online ratings and reviews. You've got to read what people are writing about you, number one. And I think most of us do, just by human nature. But then don't be afraid of that bad review. That's an opportunity to engage with that homeowner. And I see the contractors and frankly, just the businesses that do this well, take that negative review and engage with it, sometimes publicly, and turn it into, oh, well, I gave you 2 stars, but I thought that was, you know, whatever. There's a million different reasons why someone gives you a rating. And my point is, just don't ignore it and move on. Engage with it, engage with that homeowner, suss out what's driving that review. And I've seen the best contractors take those low ratings, those negative reviews, and turn them full circle 180 into somebody that is now, you know, triangulated and kind of solved, and appreciate the time that you put into addressing their need, even after the project.
Greg and team, thank you. I always like to end when there's still so much conversation to have, because it just means we get to go round 2 in the future. For our participants and listeners and contractors, you are getting our free ebook on all of these stats. We only highlighted a few of them, and we continue to do this quarter over quarter. We also have a 30-page, it's a small book, ebook for contractors on navigating COVID, also free. We'll be sending a follow-up email. If you have questions, please email us. We knew we had a lot. We were hoping that we could get to questions. We're not going to be able to, but we will do this again in the future. So I wanted to thank all of our fabulous panelists, Chris, Greg, Shawn, and James with Hearth. Thank you so much for your expertise and time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you guys very much.
Bye.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.